Hi, Jim.
Okay, we're now live. Welcome, everybody. Our special guest today is Jim Hedger, whom a lot of you will recognize as the host on Webmaster Rodeo. And I've known Jim for a couple of years. I've been following his words of wisdom for a few years before that. I figured out a long time ago he has a knack for cutting through the BS and saying what needs to be said in a way that everybody can understand. So when I saw his last piece on Jennifer Slegg's site, SimPost, it didn't surprise me a bit. He was once again saying what needed to be said. What pleased me no end was the way he covered so much of what many of us face every day in such a nice, tidy package. If you've missed that piece, there's a link to it on the event page. I highly recommend you read it, whether you're a website owner or an SEO or marketing consultant. You need to read it. Jim, welcome to the hot seat. It's a pleasure to have you with us. We'd love to hear you expand a bit on the thoughts you expressed in your recent contribution on SimPost.
Well, first off, thanks, Doc. It's nice being here. I don't even know where to begin on this on the state of the industry. Real SEOs solve problems. My business partner, Alan Connect, and I were having a conversation last week about how SEOs define themselves in a environment where old school SEO is pretty much over. Well, it's back again. But SEO has become a multifaceted practice. It's much harder to define now in 30 seconds than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So that got me thinking, why was it so easy 10 or 15 years ago to define who we are and what we do? And that got me thinking about what's up with our industry today. What are some of the challenges and problems in the industry today? And I think that sort of set the template for the article that ended up getting written. We have a reputation problem. We're a great industry. We're really smart people. Most of us are very conscientious. We care about our clients. We want to act like professionals. We want to do, right by our clients and our colleagues, by the industry, by the search engines, and by the internet environment. Nevertheless, SEOs have a terrible reputation problem. We're stuck somewhere between snake oil salesmen and used car salesmen. But we're much better than that. We do good things for our clients. I know in my practice at Digital Always Media, I'm convinced we really help our clients. And we help them in a number of ways that I think go beyond what you could possibly describe as SEO. We're more like quality control officers that are trying to enforce a standard of high quality content and also high quality behavior. And we do these things. We do these things for our client every day. We bring huge value. We probably save them a heck of a lot of money in either penalties, time when you're not ranking well, when you're not getting traffic, and the time it costs to figure out problems with a website. We had this one contract, lasted 2.5 years, where we were working for a Fortune 100 firm in Canada, and their websites had problems. And their websites had problems that sort of went beyond the realm of SEO. But since Alan and I have both been in the industry for like 14, 15 years each, in the course of our careers, we'd come across a number of these problems. So we were able to offer, very sound, logical, what I think was really useful advice. And that got me thinking that, the SEO, the most positive view of the SEO beyond, the work on page, the work to clarify content on a website, is we're problem solvers. We're a line of inspection and quality control that has a level of experience that you don't find in most organizations. We got to get over this bad reputation problem. So it occurred to me, I'm sorry I'm being long-winded, but it was quite a long article. it occurred to me the reputation problem is centered around a myth of SEOs as manipulators. And I'm using manipulator in a pejorative sense, a really negative sense, not in the literal sense where we move things around. A few months ago, I was at a meeting downtown Toronto, where in the offices of downtown Toronto, where I was introduced as an outlaw on the internet. I went with it. If they want to call me an outlaw on the internet, fine. If, I don't want to make waves at first introduction with a new client, right? Years ago, I marketed myself as a ghost in the machine. And a lot of us did in the early days, because those were the heady days when you sort of had to breathe on a website and it ranked well at Alta Vista. Or you called the secret number at Yahoo and you got your rankings. There was a mystique of manipulator, a really powerful person. And that was great in the infancy of the industry, but it was also a mistake to market ourselves like that, because it set a template that has allowed snake oil salespeople and scammers to promise first page results for $50 a month. So I think the article was trying to look at how we got to where we are now, and then offer solutions. How do we, as an industry, sort of take responsibility for this group of snake oil salesmen driving our reputations down? And the way to do that is to take control of that myth of manipulator and start promoting the myth of problem solver. I think that's a synopsis.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good roundup of it. I certainly agree, and as I already told you before, your article really resonated with me, because a lot of us have been saying the same thing in private discussions for some time. And sometimes it doesn't get enough daylight shown on it, that it needs to be, more broadly disseminated. That it doesn't take, like the old saying, one bad apple. It doesn't take too much negativity to create a reputation for any industry. And
well, no, Doc, more so. We could work really hard and do great jobs and get a stellar reputation in the industry. We could have somebody with the rhetorical skill of Danny Sullivan writing how amazing we are, and one bad story takes it all away.
Yep. Or one badly written story on something like Forbes or New York Times by some.
That's what I was going to say, Doc. We talked about this earlier. It depends on location, So few consumers, as much as we think a lot of people read search engine land, they don't. Our potential as consumers really aren't there. So it's Forbes or New York Times or someone like that or ClickSV or that this becomes a problem.
That's when most of our regular folks are getting their information. So, like Dave said, they're not reading the stuff we read.
Well, actually, when it comes to stuff inside the industry, Jennifer Slegg published something on Facebook earlier today. I think it was give me a half second to find it, because it made me really happy. Jennifer, everyone knows Jen Slegg, right? Jen Sense. I'm trying to think while looking for something on Facebook at the same time, so I apologize for stumbling through my thoughts. Jen is the publisher of the SEM Post. She
did some really good coverage of the Google Raiders Guide this week, folks, so definitely look that up. SEM Post.
Excellent.
Yep.
So, wrong window. So she published a ranking from imglance.com. The SEM Post is being read more than Search Engine Land, Marketing Land, Marketing Pilgrim, Search Engine Journal, and way down the list comes Search Engine Watch and ClickZ. I'm throwing this into the IM chat room, or the Hangout chat room. It's a really cool little chart.
But isn't that a little misleading? Isn't that website a bookmark site where the people they're counting as the readers are the people who found those stories only through that site?
To be honest, I'm uncertain. I'm just going on what my publisher wrote. I haven't looked at. I didn't even know I Am Glance existed until today. Is it a bookmarking thing?
It's a bookmarking type site, and the numbers they're counting are the numbers of people who view those articles through that site, which is sort of it's like big deal.
Okay.
Well, 30 people read that one, 25 people read this one. So, like, the one that got 30 is the king of I Am Glance or whatever.
Okay, well, you know what? In a very short period of time, a lot of people have bookmarked this publication.
Right, but we're perpetuating myths.
And you're calling me on my shit. Well done. Excellent. You're absolutely right. I appreciate that. You're absolutely right. We pump something that's not useful, as I just did, and that sets a bad template for the rest of the industry.
I see it happen all the time. Way too much.
Well, remember in the last HOA, Bill, when you said you saw this guy doing something and you called him on it, and I said more people got to stand behind you when you do stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you just called me on something, so I'm going to stand behind you on it and yell at me. You're right.
Okay.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
And that, that's a good.
It happens. It's not just.
Sorry, Doc.
I say it's not just as though we're seeing a besmirching of the SEO industry as a whole. It happens in a lot of small areas. For instance, one of the bones I've been picking at for a long time was when Clout came out and was being purported to be the indicator of your popularity, and it was about as worthless as the proverbial tits on a boar. That does create a myth in itself. And in terms of social media, what's the new SEO this week? All these little myths. If we don't speak out against them, peer index is a good one, Lee. If we don't speak out against them and put them in proper perspective, then we allow those myths to continue to grow.
So I guess the question becomes, and again, we're jumping between topics that was held on a dojo HOA like an hour ago, so it may feel repetitive. But again, the question comes up: how do we inform people in our industry and consumers of services? Our potential customers. I still maintain the best customer is a really well educated customer.
Sure.
Best client is somebody who knows and trusts what we're doing, or relatively knows what we're doing and trusts us to do it. How do we get the word out there about false metrics, about misunderstood metrics?
Personally, I think there's only two ways to do it. One is to have a large profile, highly visible publication or organization that is through PR is pushing the education hard.
Okay.
We can't even agree on what SEO is as a whole, so I don't see that happening before Monday. The other is just to do the way that we do business, each one of us, by setting examples and trying to educate on a one-on-one basis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What is the oath that doctors take when they
Above all, do no harm.
The Hippocratic Oath.
The Hippocratic Oath. We are here to help people, but we're going to charge millions of dollars. Oh, sorry, never mind. Sorry.
No, that's a
different one.
It's not the.
My dad was a doctor.
It's not the Hippocratic Oath.
Yeah.
Above all, do no harm. Yes.
Well, that should just be how we, any interaction with any client should be like this. We're helpful, not harmful. They're giving us money. I think that's a reasonable expectation any client should have.
There are people who hold themselves up as somebody respects, somebody that's of high esteem, who post link bait.
Yeah.
Articles
Yeah, indeed.
where it's pure garbage. It's not set out to educate people. It's set out to earn them links.
Right.
Well, I apologize for bringing it up, but an SEO is dead article to me is a link bait article. They publish this.
Definitely.
Shows a little bit less integrity than posting a cute kitten pic. You know.
As a matter of fact, you know what?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, Bill, correct me on this. The very first Pasternak, the very first SEO is dead article. Remember, did it, Pasternak? That was all about link bait, wasn't it? Or clickbait.
Well, that shoe monkey guy used to do them all the time.
Oh, wait, yeah, well, but yeah, that's Jeremy. Nobody really took that shit seriously anyway. I mean, that's just Jeremy. I mean, you know.
Come on.
He does that.
Yeah, we had Mike Rehan at the same time posting his filthy link post.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same type of thing. Where
Filthy linking rich, wasn't it?
linking rich.
That's what. Yeah, I remember it.
You have to have some integrity amongst ourselves. I think that's more important than some certification or standard. When people see things that are outright wrong, they need to speak up. They can't let them go. And it can't just be one person doing it.
But again, I think it's where you speak up too, Bill. You know what I mean? I've been going off about shit like this. Sorry, Doc. Stuff like this for years. But I've started to learn that maybe I should be like looking for. I've been asking friends like, business.com and places like this where our consumers are is where I should be writing about this, not on Search Engine Land or Search Engine Watch or somewhere that only I'm singing to the choir or people don't care. It's our consumers that I'm worried about getting this message across to. So it's where so I think it was someone here touched on earlier that when someone does something negative about SEO on New York Times or something, it has a lot bigger effect than me ranting about crappy SEOs on Search Engine Land where none of our potential consumers see it.
Right. Find a platform where people who matter to you listen.
Well, then that begs the question: when we're trying to reform the behavior of spammers in the industry because it's dragging us all down and mucking up the web.
Well, I don't think we reform them. We just send them out to get jobs at McDonald's, dude. We just got to put them out of business.
No, as I said, it begs the question: what audience do we best approach? Do we best approach practitioners, or do we best approach consumers?
We don't approach people by saying Google's lying about everything, and they're publishing posts like Matt Cutts wants to break the spirits of SEOs.
Yeah,
okay, that's untrue.
Misquoted post, as the case would be in that one.
And the person who wrote it replaces that with SEOs because they have a confirmation bias about how evil Google is, and they're going to push it and twist things around like that as much as they can. That's not helpful.
But to your question, Jim, as far as I'm concerned, I'm convinced I need to start communicating the message to potential consumers. I don't think you can change the stripes of some of these SEOs. I don't think the practitioners is where I want to look at anymore. Because I've been doing that for years. I started a community. I've done crap for 6-8 years, and it hasn't helped. So I'm changing my approach to going after the consumer, potential consumer.
Well, could I interject for a sec?
Please.
Jump in.
The 80-20 principle applies here. 80% of SEOs out there just haven't got it together. They're like the snake oil salesman, and then there's this other 20% that are doing it right. And if you look at the whole group here, there's some top talented people here who are SEOs who are veterans, and then there's people at different levels. And you guys, I'm at an intermediate level, so I know that if I start to look at the groups and I start to, there's no standard SEO practices. There's no university to go to become an SEO, and what I'm hearing overall is a lot of rambling, and a lot of collectively the group of everybody that's here could get the certification with the university, get the proper funding, get this organized, and put these standard practices in place.
But how do you certify a black box?
Sisyphus.
You can write best practices, but you can't certify the black box. You know, it's the inherent problem.
And I wouldn't trust most of the best practices from most of the SEOs on the web as being
Well,
right.
that's a systemic problem.
I would mark them as wrong if someone told me this is a standard.
Another thing to keep. Sorry,
Just
Bill.
like it is.
Go ahead, Jim.
Another thing to keep in mind is every situation we come across in working with our clients is going to be different. Every website's different. All traffic is different. Motivations for going to that website are different. Conversion points are different. It's hard. I mean, the best practice is don't be a scoundrel. I mean, no, but there are a number of best practices. There's design best practices. There's the way you lay out your CSS. There's spelling things correctly. That's a best practice. You know what I mean? There's quality standards. There are best practices, but when it comes down to choosing from a variety of different, I don't want to see technique or tactical, but a variety of different. Am I going to throw more weight into content? Am I going to build links? Am I going to work with titles and schema? Every situation is very different, you know.
There are best practices when it comes to doing things like communicating with your clients.
Well,
Yeah.
but that really almost crosses more into just consultant ethics, Bill.
Right, but it's still
Yeah, and it's subjective as well, Doc. It's that old argument of ours of quality content, you know.
Well, no, I think Bill's saying act like a professional.
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely. Amen. Get rid of the black hat, white hat crap, like we're 5 years old, and act like a grown up.
Oh, you are asking a lot.
Yeah,
Well, white hat, black hat's another one of those things. Remember I was talking about myths earlier? And myths, once you build them, they become the storyline, and they're much harder to deconstruct. Black hat, white hat is a myth.
I never wave the I'm a white hat SEO. I follow ethical practices, garbage that so many ineffective SEOs did over the years. Yeah, we can't rank anything for anything, so we're white hats. We're doing things ethically. But that's plain again.
That's kind of cynical, bro. Like seriously, that's a little cynical. I'm guilty of having marketed myself as a white hat. There was a time when it was a strategic advantage to say I'm following the guidelines down the line.
Yeah.
You're playing games.
Well, actually, no. I was following the guidelines down the line. I was trying not to play games, but I was also trying to say this is what I'm doing, and I was using a language that was myth building. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I was being unethical, but I do think that some of the ways we talked about ourselves were less helpful than they could have been.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah, exactly.
it's part of the reason why we have a problem, because you weren't the only one.
And, oh, indeed. Oh, yeah, I know. But I'll take responsibility, you know, with something we got to do. We have this problem. We did this. Now what?
Yeah. I was wrong. I can do better. Let's do it. Absolutely.
So I think we can all agree on one very basic principle. SEO is about clarity. Yeah?
Right. What concerns me is when people try to start setting standards for things like how much ranking value does an H1 have? How many?
Well, it's obviously 62.5%.
Yeah, it's like oh, Moz did a test that says it has no value. It's like,
What was the new test? I gotta go, guys. I can't stay. Wait, where is it? Give me a link, Bill.
well, there were like
I was kidding. I know
expert ranking reports from Moz, and I participated in the first couple of those. And it's like I regretted participating in them because they were just Rand makes a decision, give me a ranking on this particular factor. It's not a what factors do you think are important, which I would have had a whole lot more respect for.
I wasn't in on this process, but given the amount of data they're collecting, one would think it's a data-driven decision, is it not?
No.
No, it isn't. There are, I can count on one finger the number of SEO performed tests that were actually performed in anything resembling a scientific method. Most of the people out there that claim to have tested for this or that don't have clue one how a test construct is supposed to be set up. And with the exception of Dr. Pete, I don't know of anybody else in Moz that really at least practices it. If they know it, they don't put it in practice. And outside of Moz, I haven't ever seen anybody else come close.
Right. I no intent at all to pick on Moz there because compared to other folks, Moz is a lot more transparent, a lot more upright.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, the thing is, in our industry, the problem is you can't isolate enough to really be able to properly construct a test and get reliable results. We don't know enough. So much is conjecture.
And there are things like thresholds that search engines look at that may not be intuitive on their faces. When you do local search, when you know there's a Google patent that says if the title for a business is more than 3 words, we're gonna look at how it ranks for just those 3 words. If the title for a business is less than 2 words or less than 10 letters, we're going to include the city and state name when we look at how well that ranks. How do you consider that in a SEO test? I mean, that's a patent that most people wouldn't be looking at.
And plus, the combined effect of 3 or 4 different aspects brings a whole new set of rules to the table, you know. So,
well, indeed, and those rules might number in the thousands.
Right.
So you can't test cause and effect universally, of course, but you can test technique by repetition and asking if other people saw similar results.
But even then, you're only getting correlation.
You can respond to the correlation isn't causation with, but it's a good hint. But you know what? It isn't.
It's not.
The last 7 years of bad luck was definitely a result of breaking that mirror. And having a black cat walk in front of me didn't help.
Okay, I will. I'm going to go with. It's not scientific. There's little empirical evidence in SEO, but there's shared experience, and things tend to work this way.
And
I think the very best an SEO can say to a client is it tends to go this way.
And there are ways to actually make a website better. There are lots of things you can do to do that. There are a lot of things you can do to help a website rank better for certain things. But don't force me to adopt the same standards that everybody else does, because most of you are wrong. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because I find most of the methods people use to prove stuff and say something's the best way to do things have problems, have flaws.
You know, Bill, you're somebody I'd be really curious what your response to this question would be. What about when Google starts pushing or, you know, downright enforcing standards with the special way they've been doing it the last, 6 months? What do you think about that? Is that a way to effectively create a standard of behavior amongst webmasters?
A lot of what we've been hearing about that has been stuff presented by SEOs. and a lot of those SEOs were people who have chips on their shoulders.
Well, yeah, but
So-and-so had a bunch of affiliate websites in the early 2000s that got burned by Google. All of a sudden, everything Google does is a lie, and they're just greedy.
Oh, indeed, Bill. But I'm thinking about some specific incidents, like March of this year when they went after Ann Smarty's network, my blog guest. That was Google enforcing a standard of behavior. That's kind of what I was referring to.
Okay. How many times have you done link reviews for somebody who's been penalized by something like that, and seen a site like Ann Smarty's site show up and seeing that it was something you wouldn't want to be caught dead being found linked to by?
Doc could say something about that.
Well, I can say something about that too. I've found a few like that. It's like I would have called this spam if I were Google too.
Okay, again, my question isn't necessarily about Ann.
There may be lots of good links and lots of bad links, but in that particular instance, it was like I can't understand why Google wouldn't have called that spam.
Well, if you recall, when Ann got hit.
Again, I want to clarify. The question is not about Ann or even my blog guest as a network. The question is about how Google one day went boom and lowered the boom on it and a whole network of links associated with it.
But
it's not why they made it, not the decision they made, but how they did it.
Instead of asking me a question like, have you seen situations where you would question Google's trustworthiness and Google's ability to have some integrity, and I've seen some instances where I would question those. Mm-hmm. Instead of asking me that, you said, okay, let's take this particular instance.
I'm just trying to think of it was a definable event that happened just recently. That's why I chose it.
Jim, right. I would remind everybody too, now when guest blogging got hammered, when Ann took a hit, exactly a year before that, Matt Cutts did a video saying that guest blogging is being abused.
Oh, it's not like it wasn't a warning.
And 6 months before that, he had done the same thing again. So, and he's done that on several different issues where they've lowered the boom in some particular aspect. Where if you pay attention to what he's saying, 6 months and a year and 18 months prior to that, he's been hinting at it, and he's been giving you a heads up. This can't continue. You've got to be careful with this. So they're not really lowering the boom. Anybody that's awake and paying attention should have enough brains to see this coming 99% of the time.
I'd say anybody who's inside of our industry, plugged in and paying attention, seen it coming. Yes.
Okay. The average.
I actually checked it. I'd written about this late 2011 on SNC, early 2012 on Search Engine Watch. I literally have 4 articles well before any of that shit happened about guest blogging and the inherent problems that were coming down the pipe. So yeah, I agree. If you had a half a brain, you saw this coming. It shouldn't be a shock to you.
If you received any of the email spam from people offering guest blogging services.
That should have given you a clue, huh?
Yeah, I'm from Harvard University. Well, not really. We're sort of using Harvard interns, and they're writing articles, and they write articles about the topic you read about on your blog. What was that again? Yeah, right. What was that again?
The problem as I see it is that first of all, we live in a bubble. We tend to think that everybody sees the same things we see the same way that we see them, which is obviously not true. We have a very much broader perspective in the area of SEO than 90% of the people out there on the internet, and we tend to forget that. So, I'm concerned that where education of the public is certainly necessary, I'm concerned if there's any kind of a viable method to do that without it taking decades. Okay?
Well, this is actually what I was trying to ask when I was asking Bill. What do you think of this method? It's not about my blog guest. I can care less about my blog guest. It's about what Google did and how they did it. David, yeah, there was plenty of warning. They gave like a year and a half worth of warning. This is coming. This is coming. This is coming. The question is this a method of setting and enforcing behavior amongst webmasters?
I think so. I think you're right, Jim. I think this was taking a high-profile site and making an example.
Okay, I think not, Jim, because the simple fact we just discussed the last point. The last point we just made is they gave a year and a half advance notice and nobody gave a shit. So guess what? Webmasters aren't seeing any of these messages from Google. SEOs probably are great, groovy, but does the webmaster know? The site owner know? No. So I do not, as you know, personally from our conversations, I do not believe in this whole penalizing through penguins and penalizing through unnatural links penalties. I do not believe in this because at the end of the day, this does not hurt spammers, this does not hurt crappy SEOs, this only hurts business owners. So I do not believe in the practice, and that's just my 2 cents, and I'll be going on to that more at a later date.
The question wasn't about the practice, Dave. It was saying that Google is using this to teach us a lesson. Picking up the big stick and giving it.
And it's not working because the crap hats just go and get another client for $59.99. The spammers just keep spamming. The people who get hurt are business owners.
Question.
Are they penalizing? Tell me this: are they penalizing the SEO company that did the work, or are they penalizing the person who owns the site?
No, you're right. They're hurting the wrong people. But what Jim's question was, what he was addressing in the first place was, is this perhaps Google's way of trying to enforce guidelines? Crap.
Like you said, David, they've been saying for 18 months, this is coming at you. Get ready, it's coming. Get ready, we're gonna do this. No, really.
They said it to a bunch of bloody SEOs, not the webmasters. They didn't rent a fucking full-page ad in New York Times. No, they went to some conferences that these website owners don't go to. So who are they really talking to?
David, perhaps they should have.
They're not talking to the right people, apparently, because only the website owners didn't get it. The SEOs got it, but they didn't care.
I got like 2 different articles out of this conversation. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Let me pose a question to the group here. I think we all agree that some sort of, whether you call it certification or endorsement or just standards or ethics or whatever, something is needed in some fashion to help improve the situation with all the crap ads that are screwing clients over. Okay, does anybody really believe that regardless of how silver-lined the plan might be, does anybody really believe that it would be accepted and adopted if Google were to sponsor it? If they were to come out and say, okay, we propose...
I don't care, because listen, are there anti-guest blogging and anti-article marketing accepted by the SEO industry? No, but they shoved it down their throat. So guess what? If consumers start asking SEOs, are you Google certified? Guess what they're going to have to do? Do you think guys who spend $4 grand on an MCSE from Microsoft are doing it because they care? No, because that's how they get work, because they have that certification. So if Google sponsors it, as much as SEOs don't like it, they might have to come around to it because they have no choice because clients are asking for it. But that's the only way clients will ever notice it. They're not going to notice it coming from Sempo or from SEO Dojo or Moz. Clients aren't going to notice that.
I'm inclined
I think, as crazy as it may sound, I think that Google might have to be the one to do something like that.
I think it's sad, but true. Google has heft that nobody else has, and they can make us conform to their standards of behavior, because if they don't, our clients don't rank. Our clients don't rank, we don't eat.
Yeah.
Do I want it to be that way? God, no.
No, nor do I, but it might be the only way that the client base would broadly accept it.
You know what? I really don't want overfishing and nuclear bombs, but overfishing and nuclear bombs exist. Don't gotta like them to recognize their existence. Same with Google's power and Google's use of power. And you know what? They're right to use it. It's their board. It's their engine. I really worry about the little guys, like David's worrying about. The across-the-board penalties do hurt people massively. Heck, the across-the-board penalties hurt eBay. What was that figure? They lost the magnitude of double-digit billions because of it.
Right, and as I wrote on that Facebook thread we had about our responsibilities as SEOs, Sure, the guys at the top of the chain at eBay didn't lose a job, but if revenues went down 10%, somebody in a warehouse or somewhere else lost a bloody job, and you're taking money out of people's the ability to feed their children. And I think we should take our job more seriously.
Wow. I mean, maybe we should get a professional organization or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we should call it SEMPO.
No.
Charge $5,000 for a link on the front page.
What are the union fees going to be?
Not in my shop, buddy. I'm just going wrong.
We'll determine that after I figure out what my salary has to be. How's that?
But again, Doc, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you've seen me talking about that game site and stuff. You know, this guy on a proactive level, after a very serious negative SEO attack that was orchestrated thanks to Google and their approach of changing the mindset, he's looking at 15 to 20 grand a year in extra cost. Which he probably, that's going to mean he's getting a part-time job somewhere as opposed to making a living with his wonderful little website. Again, you ignore the links, this doesn't happen. You penalize the links, you do leave the door open for negative SEO, I don't care what anyone says. And I've seen it happen, I've talked to Matt about it. And again, when I talked to Matt about it, 18 months ago, Doc, he said, we have algorithms to catch that kind of stuff. It's very rare, it doesn't happen. I brought him this situation, he was like, we'll keep an eye on it. He didn't come back to me and say, our algo's got that. Don't worry about it, Dave. We got that. No, he said, we'll keep an eye on it. So, ergo, if you don't got friends at Google, you're quite open and susceptible to this stuff, which is not good.
Yeah.
Here's another question. Is Google's behavior a resource allocation issue? Are they making the choice to not ignore? I mean, they're hoovering all this data, okay? They're penalizing based on, like, this mountain of bad links that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So is the decision to come down with a really heavy sledgehammer, is that all about the resources that this increasing mountain of crap are eating up?
No, I don't think so. I think that links are something that they have probably for some time now been trying to find a way to work around and achieve essentially the same sort of results with a new factor that is less abusive prone. I think that they intend to replace links when they can with, as a major ranking factor, not get rid of links, obviously, but just replace them as a major ranking factor when they can. But I don't think it's probably resource driven. I think it's more of the fact it's abuse driven. They can't control links. They can band-aid, but
poorly thought out strategy for taming the beast. I don't think they thought about it, which is not unusual.
Well, of course not back then, no.
Bill and I were talking after you guys were setting this up, and we were joking about this one patent and stuff, whereas, why even index it or show it to someone as opposed to showing them a malware warning or this is a crappy site warning or something like that,
Right.
I don't know.
Would it be in Google's best interest to follow the same route as the Russian Russian site that killed links altogether?
Should we take our search engine that works pretty well half the time and make it so that it works pretty well 10% of the time? I don't know. We don't count links because we're going to have a random number generator determine how well a page should rank. And this way, nobody's going to have any problems.
Yeah, that's a big brother ugly scenario there.
If they do totally move away from links and they write up how they do it, I'll tell you what, Bill. As soon as you tell me how they're doing it or what to look for, I'll figure a way around it.
Right, because anytime you come up with a ranking factor, you've also got to come up with the cost to manipulate the ranking factor, because people are going to try to.
Yeah.
There's no escaping that.
There's always somebody poking the bear.
You know what? I don't know if it's as much poking the bear as it is trying to perfect the way the information I'm presenting to the engines is understood and used by the engines. I don't want to cross any lines. I don't want to try to be extreme. But if something new comes up, I'd certainly want to try it if it's within the boundaries of what I think is decent.
Mm-hmm. And Google may be 15 years old, and the web may be 20, and the internet may be 40 years old. But that doesn't mean search is a finished product. And it's far from it. There's a lot left to go.
Oh, I don't think you can ever be finished, really. What is the Holy Grail? You know?
You get to the point where someone like Ray Kurzweil says, where in 15 years the computers are going to be smarter than us.
Well, that works for our generation. We'll be retiring around then anyway.
Well, he also believes that they'll make him pretty much immortal by fixing the problems with like flesh and blood.
I really got to brush up on my investment set. I'm screwed. Yeah, search what even then, you know what? Even when we become part of the great singularity, we're still going to want to find stuff, and information will still be presented to us, whether it be through fingers on keyboard or neural implant.
Even then,
can't take away our curiosity.
Well, and increasingly, information is being hidden as well. So there will always be a need to find information that is deliberately not readily available.
Or forget.
That's what space for. Sorry. Well, that and your dirty pics. Thinking about the real SEOs thing, is there anywhere to go with the idea that like we can solve we can not solve, but we can at least set a foundation for solving the bad rep problem by changing the language we use to refer to ourselves?
Well, I mean,
is that worth pursuing?
You know, write up a pledge, and I will not promise this, I will not say that. You know, but you know, in the long term,
I wanna. The moment I say I won't, I wanna. I'm just like that.
There's a point where the cost of doing something like that far outweighs doing it. Yeah, we can get everybody to agree to something, but the cost of it is a totalitarian grip on the industry.
You remember when, and Chris, I don't mean to use Chris Boggs' name after the word totalitarian because it was not his intention, but you remember like when he tried to just suggest some certification or standards in the industry? I think it was like 2009. He puts it up on Facebook, and people flipped. They went nuts on him. It wasn't fair. It's the last time he said anything like that, too.
Which is understandable, but you have stuff like the right to be forgotten in the UK, in EU, where the court at the European Union is deciding how the search engine should behave. It's not saying all you website business owners that publish this type of stuff to the web, we don't want you to publish it anymore. Instead, they went after the search engine.
Yeah.
Well, we now in Canada have the toughest spam laws in the world.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, you're both in Canada too. Right on.
As a person, you're going to be charged $1 million if you spam people, and if you're a company, it's $10 million.
Well, that's a good.
Can you go after that as a person who's been spammed? Can you file that claim in small claims court?
Well,
Not small claims court.
How's it get enforced? $1 million?
Bill, this is Canada. When a crime is committed, it's not committed against the individual, it's committed against the Crown. So what we have to do is we have to go to the Queen and say, hey, Queen, that guy pissed me off. Would you go sue him for me? And so the Queen goes and she sues him. And that's how things get done up here.
That's sort of how it's supposed to work in the United States, too. But
what did anybody see the article on BBC about what the French courts did?
Oh
drop the
man,
link in
who are you
here.
talking about? The guy who had the restaurant review, right?
Yeah, there was a gal, a blogger that did a restaurant review, and
Terrible.
she got fined because Google ranked it too high.
And her review actually was pretty consistent
Yes,
with reviews at other places, including organizations.
and
Uh,
the suit wasn't. They didn't even find against her because of damage done by her review. It was because Google's results showed it too high.
But
Now,
how can that possibly be her fault?
well,
Did she
because
try?
they're French. I don't understand. I can't even hazard a guess there. I mean, the EU in general comes up with some of the most nonsensical findings.
Well, no. The EU recognizes the primacy of the rights of the individual to be free of interference from the state or from corporations, and they see the state and corporations as equally dangerous.
Well, the problem with
That's where they're coming from.
the problem with the anti-spam in Canada, is we can't send unsolicited emails to people, but it doesn't prevent other people from other countries from doing so.
Mm.
we have
Can I say something? I'd like to roll back to the discussion about certification. What is it that you people feel will be accomplished if you put an administrative organization around giving somebody a badge for being a certified SEO? I really want to know, because honestly, in my opinion, those sorts of things.
Again, unless it affects the bottom line. That's why I still go with Steve Garanster's version of Google. I know
What did you say, David? I wasn't quite finished with my question, but what did you say about the bottom line?
Again, this is why it seems counterintuitive to have Google do something like this. But the only way it works, it's just like Google with its hammer on links, is when it affects the bottom line. When customers hire someone else because they've got that Google badge or whatever, that's the only time it works. If it's not affecting the bottom line, then no one's going to care. You know?
Marge, I'm pretty sure I know where you're going, but could you finish your question?
Well, I mean, my question is this. Every time you build up administration around a function, I mean, I'm thinking about the Microsoft Certified Developer. Does that mean that when you hire somebody with that badge, you're, out of the box going to be guaranteed that they're going to do a better job?
Of course not. But it does mean
so what's the point?
Standards that they may get, unqualified, debarred, disbarred, or lose their license, or
then what do they
get
do?
bad reviews.
Then they can't have the Microsoft tools anymore, the developer tools.
Yeah,
so,
I'll tell you what, for everyone who's been through Microsoft certification in a class, there's somebody who placed really high in the class and somebody who was the lowest. You don't know which you're getting, the best or the lowest. But they all got certification. There's a whole bunch of other people who just didn't bother to show up. They didn't bother to get certified. They didn't bother to invest in their careers, invest in their own knowledge base, or invest in this sort of group protection thing. Nobody likes the idea of certification in SEO. David doesn't like it. I don't like it. I bet you Bill don't like it. I'm speaking for you guys. I apologize. But no one likes the idea. The problem is we have a bigger problem. We have crap hats, A, driving our rates down, and B, driving our reputations down.
Well, and I'm fully aware of that, Jim. I mean, it's just, I've been immersed in web technologies and development and, for many years, and I jumped in on the SEO education for myself about 3 years ago. I do not offer it as a service. I never will. But I'm educated. No, but what I'm trying to say is, and I said that in David Harry's chat earlier, a badge isn't going to be anything better than a BBB badge. I mean, it's just something that somebody bought. I mean, whether or not it qualifies them more. I've had clients buy SEO services, from a company that had the Better Business Bureau badge, and it was crap.
Yeah. Well, were they
able to? So education, I believe, is what we, and then we get to the point where we go, as a small business owner, that you're working with, how much time do they really want to take to understand the technologies that they need to have their business online? I meet very few.
It's funny. I see people spending a huge amount of time questioning what goes into their burger or the best $24.95 purchase to make. and they'll spend hours talking about this. But when they do an SEO contract, they're going to be spending like $1,500 to like $75,000.
Yep.
I don't know. Do some research. I don't know what to say about that. You're making.
I mean, and it's like that. I mean, I take on all shapes and sizes of clients. I mean, one of my newer ones, just yesterday, I said, open a browser window. He said, what's that? And I said, it's the thing you use to get to this meeting that we're on right now on my desktop. Oh, you mean Google? So he took, I swear to God, I mean, so, and he's launching what will probably be a very profitable business right now, and I'm helping him with the website stuff. But, when you talk to a small business owner, and I said something like this earlier, and I'm not saying anyone here is wrong, but a small business owner is dealing with urgent and critical business expenses, and they're confronted by somebody who claims to know what they're doing, and now that person's going to be sporting a badge, and this guy is going to make an investment that may or may not be fruitful. I don't know how we get to the point where we educate them in a way that they can absorb what they need to know to even choose a vendor.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say that clearly enough?
Well, you did, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that somebody who's going to make a large purchase decision has to think about before choosing a vendor or a product. In many other industries, a lot of the vetting is done a lot of the pre-vetting, I should say, is done for them. You can't hire a lawyer who is able to go to court unless that lawyer has, a law degree and pass the bar in the jurisdiction in which they're trying to represent you.
Yep.
There's two different ways of vetting that professional. One, they got a law degree. Two, they passed the bar in the state or in the province. Pre-vetting happens there, so you know that this person might be a crappy lawyer, but they're certified. They're a lawyer. Same with a doctor. You can't practice in a hospital unless you got a medical license. You can't specialize.
Well, I'll take it back to real estate. I'm a former realtor. I had to have a license, and it had to be on file with the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin when I was selling real estate in those states. Now, other things like, let's see, home inspectors, was it home inspectors? They had to have a certification. But there were other places that didn't, like mortgage vendors. And now let's go look at what happened to the economy that people are pointing at mortgages about. I'm sorry, I went off tangent there. So
well, that's the funny thing. When you start talking about certification, you start thinking about the I don't want to say tangents, but the other facets of the industry. If SEO should be certified, shouldn't the web designers be certified too?
And there you go. I mean, here's a whole nother thing. And if somebody, I do web development. I'm self-taught. Does that mean that I'm less qualified? Hell no. I'm in a group of people who are experts, quote unquote, in the platform where I develop, and most of those people are what I refer to as plug-in developers. They slap up a theme and they add plugins to create functionality. They are not developers.
And this is, this whole last 10 minutes of the conversation is why certification has never and probably will never happen. It's extremely complicated.
How do you define the bar of quality for SEO?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's a great question. You know what? This is a very Darwinist industry. You get the rankings or you don't. Thing is, there's no way to keep track.
Do rankings matter anymore?
Well, no, you know what? Traffic does. Results matter. Getting, I don't want to use like ROI because I really never liked that acronym, even though it's, are they making more than they gave you in the first place? That's a good indicator. They'll give you more later. I don't know, man. Like, I'm trying to. I got lost thinking. Wow, I wonder if we could keep track of results that different SEOs get for their clients. But of course, that's impossible.
Well, David talks often about how he, sells the idea of bringing more money to their bottom line. Which is ROI at the end of the day.
And theoretically, that's what we should be doing for our commercial clients. our clients who
I
are
see
like,
David looking at the camera now.
No, I think
Well,
it
I
comes
figured you
down.
had it, George. I didn't know I really had to go anywhere with that. You seem to have it covered, so.
No, but it comes down to adding value to someone's business at the end of the day, and I think that's what defines a good SEO is if you can, if somebody's charging you, I don't know, $5,000 a month for SEO, and that they're not bringing in at least $15,000 in revenue, like quantify what the value level is.
Well, I'd go more on a percentage. I mean, 15,000 is an arbitrary number, but if you can increase the volume of sales by some percentage or be held somehow accountable for that outcome, that's probably a better way to state it in a contract.
Here's another way to look at that, though. My partner, Alan, is analytics master. Okay? Dude looks at numbers, figures stuff out, just like that. It's amazing watching him work. He noticed that one of our clients had configured web trends wrong. They were missing a bunch of data and making decisions that were costing them money.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say we made them any more money. I have no idea if we made them any more money, but I do know that we saved them money. There is a return on investment, but it wasn't from revenues.
That's adding value.
But it affected their bottom line, right, Jim?
I'm sorry?
It affected their bottom line, correct?
It did affect their bottom line, and yes, I believe it added value. But again, it's not a measurement from a revenue perspective. It's a measurement from solving a problem that was creating a suck kind of perspective.
Okay, then ROI is probably the wrong thing. Bottom line is probably
that's one of the
the right
reasons
thing.
why I'm comfortable with the acronym, because we do more than that. We do more than money. We keep websites functioning properly. Heck, our advice should always be towards, again, best practice standards in X, Y, and Z, in X, Y, and Z, in these areas. I believe that our practices as SEOs should always be towards what we believe are the best practices for that client or industry. With trying to pack 3 thoughts into one sentence.
It's not working.
It's much easier in print when you can rewrite it, eh?
Easy for you to say, Bill.
Well, I mean, framing language for,
Really easy for me to
business
say.
relationship is always a challenge, and part of that is an educational aspect, because you have to explain to them what the words mean many times.
So when you get to a lawyer and you have a lawyer who works in criminal cases and death row cases, is the lawyer who's following best practices the one who ends up with less dead clients?
I think it depends on the state of the jurisdiction, Bill.
Let me go back. Standards evolve. At one point in time, you didn't have to take a bar exam to be a lawyer. You had to tell somebody who was a lawyer that you wanted to be a lawyer, and they would vouch for you. You didn't have to go to school. You didn't have to do nothing. So one of the most famous one of the most famous civil cases of all time involved a guy who was a lawyer in Philadelphia who was run out of town on a rail because of some of his relationships with other people didn't like. So they chased him away. He went to Portland and became a lawyer. They didn't look at his past history. They had no idea what happened on the East Coast.
Well, there was a time when a physician didn't have to go to medical school because there were no medical schools per se.
Right. So we're really sort of early in the infancy of search engines and SEO.
Yep.
There aren't standards. It's like plumbers. There were no plumber schools. There were no professional licensing standards moderated by the state that said you had to take this type of class and this type of class and this type of class. We're sort of making it up as we go, as an industry, as a society.
Yep.
Uh, there's no hold your right hand up in the air and swear on the Constitution that you'll market to the best of your ability.
No, there is the implied agreement with the client that you'll do exactly that, though.
There's some type of matter of honor, like John Runyon wrote about in his book On Honor, which talked about if you don't know what you're willing to die for, you'll never know what you're willing to protect and live for.
Well, I love my clients and all, but that's a bit much.
All right, boys, ladies, gentlemen, I gotta get out of here.
Bye, David.
But in that case, it's not necessarily.
You're awesome.
Take care of yourselves. Have fun.
Yeah, we've gone over the hour, but I don't really want to cut the convo short. I mean,
Yeah, go nuts, man. They're always
flowing.
good stuff. Anyways, I'll see y'all guys around the.
Take care, Dave. Thanks for
Keep well,
stopping in.
David. Thanks for earlier, eh, bro?
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I know it is a conundrum in our industry, and I'm just going to call it the web-related industry because I don't do SEO. But, many, many times my heart just breaks for people who have wasted thousands and thousands of dollars on crappy development. And then they come to me and they go, yeah, but I already spent, and they recite the number, and I have to be the, well, were you working with me? No. Then that's irrelevant.
And that's what it often comes down to. I don't think any one of us want to get pigeonholed in any of the opinions we might have expressed in this conversation. I know I certainly don't. I'm not for certification in the industry. I'm not for it. I'm really against the people who are driving our reputation down. And this conversation sprang out, and then also the earlier HOA, both seem to have sprung out of a frustration with this part of the industry. What do we do about it? That was half of what I had written that article about in the first place. The other half was to really emphasize the point that good SEOs are problem solvers as much as they are content creators or good webmasters or Google manipulators. What we really are is people who see and solve problems.
So rather than trying to present the reputation of SEOs in the good light, what about evolving the label of what we are?
And
I don't look at myself as an SEO anymore. I look at myself as a digital, as you're saying, Jim, a problem solver. But I'm a business analyst. I come in and marketing is math to me. I look at the business, I look at what their goals are, and I align those business goals to outcomes. And then I go in and I do what needs to get done. But I don't look at the SEO component as a holistic approach, because let's face it, SEO in 2005 from SEO in 2014. How many across this board are doing other things than SEO as part of their services? I can guarantee you that 99% of you are offering a broader base of services because you cannot survive on core SEO practices anymore.
Absolutely. It involves, we touch on everything anymore.
So I'm hearing silence right now. The reason why I'm hearing silence is because nobody's saying I disagree with you.
I disagree with you.
Yeah, I disagree too. Well, also, I've done. Bill and I have had the luxury of building a career over a whole lot of years and being really known for this. My career is SEO and website improvement. That it is what I do full time. Full stop. I also write stuff, but I don't get paid.
Okay, so the part where I disagree with you is calling stuff core SEO stuff and expecting it to be exactly the same in 2014 that it was in 2005, because most of the stuff I do now is different.
Didn't exist.
It's like trying to paint a target on a train that's passing you by at 70 miles an hour.
So a lot of stuff I do has nothing to do with the stuff I was doing in 2005.
Of course.
Although does.
The search engines have
There,
changed.
well, there are some fundamental things that you're still doing, but yeah, it's an evolving practice.
And actually, that's a really cool segue to the idea that, SEO has changed a hell of a lot since the earliest days, since the middle part of the practice. Hell, since 2.5 years ago, SEO has changed a lot.
Well, look at it. I mean,
There's a lot of knowledge that from the earliest days. Bill, the 64-point patent where Google started talking about keeping a dossier on every web document. It was in 2003, if I remember correctly.
March 31st, 2005 was when that was published.
Oh wow! There you go. But you know what I'm talking about, right? That's an important one because that Google kind of spelled out how they keep track of everything that happens around a website.
It's
You
like
gotta know that
if
document.
you get 9 of the best search engineers in the world, locked them in a bar for the weekend, and then collected all the bar naps they took notes on Monday morning. That was the one that involved understanding when a site was either stale or filled with spam,
That's right.
based upon temporal aspects. Information retrieval through based on historical.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think that was a critical one that SEOs have to know. It may or may not apply today as heavily as it did back in 2005, but the ideas inherent in it are important for making decisions today.
It was overly broad. There are like 20 of them that people constantly claim are ranking factors at Google, and they're not.
Well, I'm not saying they are or they aren't. I'm just talking about how Google behaves.
But yeah, you're right. I wasn't completely finished there. I was going to agree with you, even though I was adding a disclaimer to the beginning of it. If you're looking at the assumptions that search engineers make about search and the web and searchers, it provides a lot of insight. It really does. One of them is the web is constantly changing, and things that were produced 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago aren't going to have as much value as something that's a lot more fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are a lot of things like that in that particular patent you're talking about.
So I brought that one up just because I thought it was a key document, again from a specific point in time that I could reference, and there was a number of points in the history of this practice that I'd say were key things that you have to know, or at least know of. It's like knowing how to write a robot text file, or the difference between a 301 and a 302. There's things you just got to know. And some of that is historic knowledge. Yeah, Bill's right. We ain't practicing SEO the way we were 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, technology has changed so much, and Google has leveraged that. My God, their databases must be massively huge.
Oh.
And databases were like, brand new back in what, 1990?
So,
Stuff changes. Technology drives the changes, and therefore the methods that we use.
Well, indeed. In fact, I can name 2 unique points where Google changed the entire server infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
There was probably more, but I know that I'm aware of 2 of them. One of them was actually quite recent. They called it Caffeine. The other was, they called it Hummingbird. Hummingbird, Caffeine, whatever. The other was called Big Daddy. Happened 2005, 2006-ish. I've got a really bad relation with time. I don't take it seriously enough.
Yeah, I mean, I've been around the internet since before it was called the internet, and when we used to have to, transferring files meant putting it on a floppy and running down the hall. You know what I mean? So I've seen this thing grow up, and it's the further advances in technology, the easier it is for people to do crappy things, like crap SEO. But at the end of the day, what is a core SEO practice? Bill hit the nail on the head. What would that be? Because it's constantly changing.
Well, yeah, it is. Although the elements often remain the same. Title tag is still a title tag.
That's true.
The body content is still the body content. The server structure is still the server structure.
But
The
Google
web
index pages is less of a sure thing. Google indexes objects and the back page to those objects now, and the page doesn't matter as much. So that's a change that has long-lasting, long-reaching impact and makes things very different.
Well, what I'm trying to discuss here is if you imagine yourself as an electrician, right? You have to go to school and learn everything about electricity, and there's certain standards that you have to follow so you don't basically electrocute people and burn their house down.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm trying to convey here with SEO. I think there's a certain foundational aspect or technical foundation that every good SEO needs to follow. And yes, I agree 100% that it's an evolving practice, and it always will be, and it'll always change and ebb and flow. And it may die at some point. But it's trying to understand if you're going to set I guess a benchmark for people to be at that point. What is that benchmark?
You can't set that benchmark based on knowledge and what kind of knowledge they have. You can set the benchmark based upon some type of aspirational set of goals that you'd like to see them follow, like professional rules of ethics in the legal field. But you can't specifically state you need to know this, you need to know that, you need to know this, and have everybody need to know the same things, because some of y'all are really slow. That's why.
Well, I could imagine if I sat down with each of you and spent $25,000 to be trained.
Because too many people espouse views of SEO that may have been true in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them espouse views of SEO and how it works that was never ever true, like keyword density or LSA keywords. Give me a break.
Well, if I were to hire one of you who are a purist SEO to teach me to be an SEO, each of you would teach me differently.
Yes.
Yeah. Most likely.
Yeah, it's back to the, you put 15 experts in a room and ask them what their business is, and you'll come up with 15 different answers.
Well, to follow up to Bill's comment just now, I think really the first step toward any sort of a broad-based standard is simply one of an ethical code, okay, which one would hope would be common sense, would already exist in any consultant's mind, but obviously it's not necessarily the case. But I think, that's what happened with medicine before med schools existed. That's what happened with lawyers. They started out first with a code of ethics, and then they start setting up certain certification standards. Whether that'll ever come to pass in our industry remains to be seen. My guess is probably no. But I think a code of ethics is probably a first step.
Secret handshake too, Doc?
Well, maybe. A decoder ring would be cool.
You got to wear an apron and go to private meetings. I'm kidding. I'm doing Monty Python for you guys.
But I think that a code of ethics could be accepted.
Can we have the red hats with the tassels on top?
My grandpa was a Shriner. 33rd degree Mason. No, I mean, a code of ethics is fine. Now, now let's follow that through and let's talk about the customer meeting. I signed the code of ethics. What does that tell them? I mean, how do you explain to them that that's valuable?
Well, it's going to be in the eyes of the beholder.
Always, yeah.
But it's a starting point. It doesn't have any teeth, but it's a starting point. And it's a level of expectations that I think it's reasonable for any client to be able to at least hold certain expectations. Right now, they don't even know what expectations they can reasonably hope for.
So we all do pinky swears that we're going to behave ethically. Is that the deal? I'm being awful. I'm sorry,
Yes,
Doc.
you are. But essentially, yeah, that's what it boils down to.
Mm-hmm. Client calls up, says, I want some of this SEO stuff. I hear I need that to run a business.
We sell that by the pound and by the bag. You know, how would you
You know, there needs to be an expectation that you'll take the time to sit down, talk to them, tell
G-R-A-C.
them what you'll do.
Yeah,
Give
like
them
Grace, but it's
how long-
passively.
how
Yeah,
long-
that's what I was referring to before, Bill,
A-V-I-C-I.
about educating. I mean, you're an educator when you take on a customer
Her
at
phone
the end of the
number
day.
is 647.
And, I don't mean you're
344.
educating them on the, finite details of what it
3883.
is that you know, but you're giving them information in words that they can comprehend and appreciate.
Yes, she
Feel
is.
comfortable.
In fact, she
Somebody's on the phone.
mentioned.
Jim, mute your phone. Thank you.
I just did.
Okay.
So, I know that when I was in real estate, I was an educator. I had to teach people what it meant and what to look for and na 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 na. So, I mean, and I do the same thing with web development. I do. So bless your hearts for doing that with SEO if you do it. There are so many people who say, "Hey, I'll write your articles." Great. That's nice. Oh, I'll build your links. And people still rely on the fact that those links, are important. And then there's other people who claim to be SEOs who say, I do, on page. Well, that's part of it.
I can take the list of recommendations that I might have for changes to a client's site or for things that we've actually changed and write it down on a list and end up with one page. But I usually end up giving the client about 50 pages and saying these are the things that we want to change or we want you to change. And these are the reasons why.
And then you have to sit down with them and go through it, at some length so they understand it, right?
And I usually, before then, go through it and prioritize those.
Yep.
And these are the most important things on here. So they're the things we're going to talk about first. Because you can hide something from somebody by making it too difficult for them to address. Here's 60 pages worth of stuff. We'll call you up in 10 minutes to tell you why we're going to do these things. Yeah. It's educating.
Here, sign this and pay my bill, and then I'll talk to you, right?
Then I'll tell you what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I know when I was, getting signatures on an offer to buy or a contract to sell, I went through that contract, literally line by line. That you're signing this and this is what it means. I want you to understand that, do you? And it sounds like you do a similar thing, Bill, in your business, and that's great. And Doc, I'm sure you do.
That's how we overcome the type of reputation problems that Jim was talking about.
I think communication's key to it. Like an agent, like I just sold my house, and my agent didn't do anything. My agent filled out a couple of forms, and the notary did all the work.
And now we go back to my protest. Go ahead.
Let's define that, though.
Now we go back to my protest about certification, because I went to real estate school and with a bunch of other people, but not everybody did their business the way I did. I care.
Yeah, but that's the difference. The difference with my agent is she built a relationship with us, and that's why she got her commission, right? And I think at the end of the day, I think the biggest roadblock for a lot of SEOs is trying to explain the technical mumbo jumbo that you have to do for a client. Because most of the time, the client doesn't really care.
Yes.
The client cares about the results, and I'll be honest with you, I'm spending less and less time educating clients on the technical aspects of what I'm doing, and I'm spending a lot more time on understanding their business and their customers more intimately.
When I say education, though, Brian, I wasn't talking about educating them on all of the technical knowledge that you have. That's impossible. You'll
Yeah,
overwhelm them.
of
You know,
course.
but what Bill is doing sounds like a reasonable middle of the road kind of thing. You know, here's the laundry list, here's the priority of the laundry list, and this is why we're starting here.
Yeah, keep it simple.
And also obviously the risks and liabilities that go with your recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
Which is again boils down to an ethical thing. If you're going to sell them on directory listings and link building, then you need to make them understand the fact that you might be able to get them faster results by doing it this way, but there is a higher risk impact.
And selling a client on things like that is different than here's why we want to speed up your website by
Right.
getting rid of all the internal redirects and making the images much smaller and so on. You know, there's not necessarily the risk analysis and explanation and so on, but if you can provide why that's of value and why it's of more value than some of the other things that you might do.
I think that's a good key point is you have to start with the why.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, listen, folks, we're coming up on 2 hours. We really ought to cut this off here.
I suppose, Doc.
We can
But
certainly
this is an interesting discussion today. Thank you.
We can certainly stick around and continue the discussion, but I think we need to cut the broadcast off. I don't know if Jim is yet off of his call.
All the best, guys. Take care.
Certainly enjoy seeing everybody. Glad you all showed up.
Yeah, thank you for showing up, everyone.
Stick around if you like, and we'll continue the discussion because I think it's an important discussion, and I think it's one that can have some fruit in some fashion. Brainstorming it is a good way to come up with some ideas and get the juices flowing.
Yeah, nothing.